Have you ever felt tired without knowing why? Not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but a quiet heaviness like you've been carrying something invisible for far too long. Expectations, roles, voices that aren't even yours. You keep moving, achieving, collecting, but inside, something feels missing. That emptiness isn't failure, it's a signal, a whisper from the part of you that remembers who you were before the noise. This isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of what no longer serves you. Because sometimes, the life you want isn't found by adding more, but by releasing what's been holding you back. In this video, through the lens of Stoic wisdom, we'll return to the essentials: simplicity, stillness, and the quiet power of being true to yourself. The path is already within you. You just need to clear the way. When less means more, the journey begins with what you're willing to let go of. Have you ever felt like your life is overflowing, yet somehow deeply empty? A packed schedule, a wardrobe bursting at the seams, a list of friends as long as a novel, and yet, inside, a nameless stillness, a vague exhaustion you can't quite place. We are taught that to live is to strive, to have more possessions, more relationships, more achievements, more goals all at once. But the more we try to rise, the more we feel like we're sinking. I used to live like that too. I had a stable job, a salary many would envy, a cozy little apartment in the heart of the city, and a social circle always ready to meet up at a moment's notice. But one night, after wrapping up a wildly successful project, I sat alone in my brightly lit apartment and cried, not out of sadness, not out of joy, but because I was exhausted. I realized I had sacrificed too much to hold on to things that no longer belonged to me, a job I no longer loved, social connections filled with obligation, and goals I never truly chose. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your soul." If your mind is constantly filled with worries, comparisons, and fears, there's no way you can live lightly, even if you own the entire world on the outside. So I did something everyone said was crazy. I quit my job. I left the city. I packed a single backpack with just a few clothes and moved to a quiet rural village. No internet, no schedule, no noise. At first, I felt lost. No more morning reminders, no late-night phone calls, no pressure to please anyone. But then, I began to breathe slower. I heard the birdsong, smelled the damp grass in the morning, and for the first time in years, I sipped tea without checking my email. So how do you live with less and end up with more? Not everyone needs to leave the city, but everyone can start with small steps. Reorganize your living space. Let go of anything you haven't used in the past 6 months. Every item is a tether. Free your mind to breathe. Write down just 3 important tasks for the day, instead of a 15-item to-do list. Learning to choose is the first step toward mastery. Sit quietly for 5 minutes each morning. No phone, no planning, just watch your mind. You'll be surprised by how restless it really is. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Take a moment today. How many things you're holding on to are actually holding on to you? Only when you become lighter can you see the sky. Only when you let go can you make space to be yourself. And maybe, just maybe, it's simplicity, not complexity, that unlocks the door to true peace. Are you ready to take the first step toward a lighter, deeper, truer life? Start with this question. If I could only keep 3 truly important things today, what would they be? The journey back to your essence begins with something as simple as that. The beauty of letting things flow. Letting go is not losing. It's how you walk forward freely. Imagine this. You're standing beside a river, holding a single leaf in your hand. That leaf represents the burdens you carry, unfulfilled expectations, people who've left, unforgiven mistakes, and unspoken feelings. You cling tightly to that leaf. You're afraid to let go. You think that if you release it, you'll lose a part of yourself. But then you notice the tighter you squeeze it, the more it withers. And so does your heart. Why do we suffer? Not because of what happens, but because we refuse to let it go. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Observe constantly that all things are in a state of change. Learn to accept that. For nature loves nothing so much as to change. The world is in constant motion. Everything you love, everyone you know, even you are changing moment by moment. And true peace doesn't come from control. It comes from learning to release." I once couldn't let go of a project I had poured my heart into. Even though I knew it no longer aligned with my path, I kept going. I was afraid that if I let it go, all the time, energy, and faith I had poured into it would be for nothing. But the more I held on, the more drained I became. I lost sleep, lost inspiration, lost trust in myself. Until one afternoon, staring blankly at my computer screen, I asked myself, does continuing this still make me happy? The answer was no. And in that moment, I lowered my hands. I stopped. And I exhaled. Letting go is not weakness. It is an act of immense courage. You're not running away. You're choosing. And you'll find that some things are most beautiful only when you let them go. So how do you practice letting go in a graceful and mature way? Practice losing something small each day. Let go of a harsh comment. Let go of an outdated expectation. Each thing you release brings you closer to inner lightness. Practice impermanence. Each morning, remind yourself that everything you have today could be gone tomorrow. This doesn't make you pessimistic. It makes you grateful. Write a letter you'll never send. To someone who's left, to an old version of yourself, or to a fear inside you. Say everything, then burn it, shred it, or let it drift away in your mind. Seneca once said, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." You don't need to carry the entire past on your back just to walk toward the future. You only need to carry the lesson and leave the pain behind. If you dropped that leaf into the river right now, what would change? Maybe nothing on the outside, but inside you, a space would open. And it is in that space that new life begins. The invisible chains we lock ourselves in. Have you ever felt trapped, not by your circumstances, nor by others, but by the very thoughts in your own head? You're not locked in a room. No one's tying you down, but your mind feels heavy, like it's dragging behind it a mountain of invisible stones. Those chains aren't outside of you. They are within, whispering thoughts like, "I'm not good enough. I will fail. They'll judge me." These are stories you've told yourself so many times that you've come to believe they are truth. But have you ever stopped to ask, am I living by my own truth or just avoiding others' judgments? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "How strange it is that we love ourselves more than anyone else, yet care more about their opinions than our own thoughts." I used to live that way too. I turned down a job opportunity simply because I feared I wasn't good enough. I came up with excuses. The timing's not right. I'm not ready. But the truth was, I was afraid of failing, afraid of disappointing looks, afraid of judgment. It wasn't the world that rejected me. It was the fear within me. And when I finally dared to step forward to face failure, I discovered something surprising. Those chains had never been real. They were beliefs I had chosen to believe, even though no one had ever forced me to. Are you living inside invisible chains like these? Maybe it's the pressure to succeed, to be perfect, to always be strong. But are you sure these are things you truly want, or just things you're afraid to defy? Try this. Write down 3 things that have made you feel restricted lately. Then ask each one directly, if I let this go, what's the worst that could happen? You'll see most of the things you fear have no clear shape. And when you dare to look them in the eye, they vanish like shadows. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And do you know what the miracle is? When you dare to remove those invisible chains, you don't just feel lighter, you realize you can go much further than you ever believed. You don't need someone to hand you the key. You're already holding it, leaving without taking a single step. We often think that to change our lives, we must do something drastic, quit our jobs, study abroad, move to a new city, leave a relationship. But there is another kind of leaving, quiet, unnoticed, requiring not a single step, that can create the most profound transformation. It's when you leave behind the way you view a situation. I once had a friend who constantly felt stuck at work. Every day was a string of complaints: unfair boss, selfish colleagues, toxic environment. He believed that if he could just leave that company, everything would be better. But after changing jobs twice, he still found himself in the same cycle: disappointment, exhaustion, and confusion. Until one day, instead of running away again, he did the simplest thing. He changed his perspective. He stopped blaming his boss, stopped paying attention to office gossip, and began focusing on his own reactions, his work ethic, and his attitude. No one in the company changed, but he did. And something strange happened. The tension faded. The work felt lighter, and he no longer felt trapped. Not because he left that place, but because he left behind the resistance in his own mind. Epictetus once said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of those events." It's like standing in a cramped room, bumping into invisible walls, everyday expectations, pressure, fears. But then you realize that room was built by you, and you can step out of it at any time without ever packing a bag. So how do you leave without going anywhere? First, practice observing your emotions. When you feel stressed, angry, or anxious, instead of reacting immediately, ask yourself, where is this emotion really coming from? Is it truly because of others, or because of how I'm interpreting the situation? Second, practice mental distancing. When faced with something unpleasant, imagine you're an outsider watching yourself in a film. You'll realize you don't always need to react. Not everything deserves your energy. Third, find one small thing to be grateful for each day. A beam of morning sunlight, a warm hug, a simple meal. When you're grateful, you stop feeling deprived. And when you feel whole, you no longer need to run away to seek more. You see, not all journeys begin with a footstep. Some begin with a step inward, a quiet departure from anger, from misplaced expectations, from the emotions that have pulled you away from yourself. You don't have to change the whole world. You only need to change the way you move through it. The quiet strength of being alone. Have you ever sat alone in a crowded cafe, no phone? No conversation, just you and the stream of people passing by? At first, there's awkwardness, then emptiness, and then a strange feeling, as if you're meeting someone you've forgotten for a long time, yourself. The modern world teaches us that if we're not busy, not connected, not engaging, we're falling behind. But Stoicism says otherwise. It tells us, when you're strong enough to walk alone, that's when you tap into your deepest power. I used to think strength meant having a voice, influence, and many connections. But then one day, when life became chaotic and my relationships fractured, I had no one to lean on. Only silence remained. And in that silence, I heard my inner voice for the first time in years. Not the voice of society, not expectations, not cliché advice, but the real one, gentle but firm. Epictetus once said, "The only freedom worth having is freedom from being controlled by what is outside your control." And to gain that kind of freedom, you must learn to pass through empty days without feeling empty, to sit alone without feeling lost. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. Being alone means needing to prove nothing. It's a return, a slow breath, a mirror into your own soul asking, am I living true to who I really am? And you'll be surprised to find, in that silence, you are not weak. You are steadier than ever. Because when there's no one left to please, you begin living by your own values. Try this. Spend one evening with no technology, no friends, no work. Just you, a notebook, and a soft lamp. Write down 3 emotions you often hide when someone is around. Then answer this. What will I do to listen to myself more? Seneca once emphasized, associate with people who make you better. But before meeting them, learn how to do that with yourself first. Because if you cannot be at peace when alone, you'll never truly be at peace with others. When you're alone, no one applauds you. No one validates you. But if you journey deep enough within, you'll realize you don't need it anymore. Because the most important recognition is the one you give yourself. Freedom, not what you think it is when someone mentions freedom. What comes to mind? Perhaps a spontaneous trip with no itinerary, a job with no micromanagement, a life untethered to anyone. But Stoicism suggests true freedom isn't out there. You could live in a beautiful home, travel wherever you want, answer to no one, and still be imprisoned. Imprisoned by fears, by expectations, by emotions you can't control. You've probably seen this before. Someone standing atop a mountain, surrounded by endless sky, but filled with anxiety inside. What if I fail? What will people think of me? That's not freedom. That's an invisible prison built by your own mind. Epictetus, a man who was once a slave, said something I will never forget. Freedom is the ability to live as you choose, not to be controlled by what is beyond your control. And he lived that way even while in chains. I remember facing a major conflict at work. Everyone was blaming each other. A part of me wanted to shout, to defend myself. But I recalled the words of Marcus Aurelius. You have the power to remain silent. You have the power not to be drawn into the madness of others. I took a deep breath, didn't respond, didn't try to prove anything, just observed, just listened. And surprisingly, I didn't feel weak. I felt free because I knew I didn't have to react. I didn't have to let someone else's emotions dictate my actions. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is knowing what you're doing and why you choose it. Ask yourself these 3 questions whenever you feel out of control. Is this within my power to change? Will my reaction help me or pull me further away from myself? If I let go of this negative emotion, how would I feel? Answer honestly, and you'll see most things that make you feel trapped were never real to begin with. They only lived in your mind. Seneca once said, "We suffer because we believe we're suffering. But if we change our perspective, the world changes too." Freedom, in the end, is not what you have. It's what no longer has you. No one can steal your inner peace unless you hand it over first. Own nothing, yet having everything. Sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? Owning nothing and yet having everything? But that's one of the most beautiful paradoxes that Stoicism offers. When you're no longer bound by external things, that's when you begin to touch the fullness within. We live in an age where everything can be bought. A new phone, a faraway trip, a sense of recognition on social media. But the more we have, the more we feel we lack. The more we possess, the more we fear losing. The more we seek happiness outside, the more we lose ourselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Very little is needed to live a happy life. I used to be someone who always wanted more. One more achievement, one more goal, a better relationship. But then one day I asked myself, if I had nothing, who would I be?" That question made me pause. I began to let go of things that no longer nourished me. A relationship that lacked sincerity. A job that gave me money but not peace. A self-image I clung to just to be admired. At first, I felt empty. So empty, I thought I had lost everything. But in that emptiness, I began to hear a true voice from within. No longer the voices of what others wanted me to be, just presence, stillness, and a strange sense of wholeness. That's when I understood. You don't need to own the world to feel rich. You just need to not depend on it. Epictetus once taught, if you want to be free, don't wish for things to happen as you want. Wish instead to accept things as they are. You don't have to renounce the material world. You just need to stop identifying yourself with it. You can start practicing this in small ways. Try living one day without buying anything unnecessary. Write down 3 things you own that, if lost, wouldn't change who you are. Each morning, repeat to yourself, everything the first need to live fully is already within me. The less you depend, the richer you are. The more you let go, the lighter you become. The less you need to possess, the freer you feel. That's when you realize owning nothing is not a loss. It's the highest state of abundance. And when you've put down the unnecessary burdens, you'll be ready to enter the deepest stillness, where the outside world can no longer disturb your inner peace. Peace is not in the world, it's in you. Have you noticed? We often wait for the world to be peaceful so that we can feel at peace. But the world has never truly been still. And if we keep depending on it for safety, we'll forever be like a boat drifting in life's storm. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't look for peace outside. It can only be found within." I remember a time of great turbulence in my life, a career shift, a broken relationship, deteriorating health. Everything seemed to collapse. I felt like I was free falling in a storm. I tried to control it all, planning, praying, worrying, but everything remained beyond reach. Until one day, I sat down and realized the world will never stop changing, but I can learn how to stand firm within it. When I stopped resisting, stopped blaming, stopped reacting, I began to hear a quiet but real sound within me, stillness. Not because the world became less chaotic, but because I no longer let myself be swept away by it. That's what Stoicism calls ataraxia, tranquility of the soul amidst external turmoil, a mountain unmoved by thunder. You can begin practicing this today. When emotions arise, don't rush to react. Pause, breathe deeply and ask, is this emotion truly necessary for my peace? When the world exhausts you, don't try to control it. Find a quiet space in your mind and stay there for a while, not to escape, but to observe. And when you feel the urge to change the whole world, try changing how you see it instead. Seneca once reminded us, it's not because things are difficult that we don't dare. It's because we don't dare that things are difficult. You don't need life to be gentle before learning to breathe deeply. It's in the storms that you learn how to keep your breath steady. Peace is not a condition. Peace is a choice. It's when you no longer let the world dictate your state of mind. And once you've learned to hold on to that inner stillness, you'll realize there's no need to run from emotions. You only need to transform them. Emotional maturity, the art of transforming instead of escaping. We're taught how to avoid emotions, but few teach us how to stay with them. When we're angry, we escape by yelling. When hurt, we hide behind fake smiles. When anxious, we rush into action just to avoid sitting with our discomfort. But the strange truth is, emotions never disappear just because we avoid them. They remain, simmering, like an underground current waiting to surge. And that's why emotional maturity doesn't come from suppression, but from the ability to transform. Stoicism doesn't teach us to be numb. On the contrary, it teaches us to observe emotions honestly, without clinging, without immediate reaction. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When overtaken by emotion, wait, do nothing, and then you'll see it fade. I remember a time I was so angry I couldn't speak, deeply hurt by someone's words. But instead of reacting, I stepped outside, sat alone in silence. I didn't deny the anger. I looked straight at it, and I realized I wasn't angry at the words themselves, but at how they hurt my ego. That emotion, if left unexamined, could have destroyed a relationship. But just a few minutes of stillness turned the wave into clarity. From anger came understanding. From pain came compassion. From fear came awareness. You can practice this too, in the smallest of moments when criticized. Instead of resisting, ask, is there any truth in what they said? When anxious, write down what you fear. Then ask, has this fear actually come true? When sad, resist the urge to scroll or distract. Sit with the sadness and listen. Emotional maturity is when you guide yourself through the waves rather than being swept away by them. Seneca once said, courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward, even while your heart is trembling. You don't need to eliminate emotions. You need to see them, understand them, and choose how to respond consciously. Because only when you understand what's happening within can you truly master what's happening outside, returning to your own path. There are moments in life when you pause and ask, am I living my life or the life others expect of me? Maybe you're there now, at a crossroads, weary from chasing expectations, surrounded by noise, where everyone seems to know what they're doing, except you. But there's a quiet truth Stoicism always reminds us of. No one can live your life for you. No one is responsible for your soul, except you. You don't need to find a new path. You just need to return to the old one, your own, the one you once left behind. I remember a moment in life when I paused, looked at everything I had worked for, the money, the reputation, the social connections. I thought I had succeeded. But one morning, waking up in a spacious room, I felt empty. I had gone so far, but far from myself. And so, I began to return, step by step. No need for anything grand, just listening again to the voice within. I placed my hand on my heart and asked, what do I truly value? What kind of life do I want to live? Am I being kind to myself? Stoicism doesn't give you the answers. It simply points the way for you to find your own. Because the right path isn't the one everyone agrees with. It's the one that brings you peace as you walk it. This journey may be quiet. You may have to part with some people, some things. You may feel alone, but in that stillness, you'll hear your real heartbeat again. Remember what Marcus Aurelius said, what matters is not what others say about you, but what you say to yourself each day. You don't need to please the world. You just need to live in alignment with the values you truly believe in. Because in the end, life is not a race to the finish. It's a conscious journey, one day at a time. A journey back to yourself, to what is deep and real. And if you've come this far, it means you're brave enough to begin your own journey. No need to rush. No need to be perfect. Only honesty is required. Welcome back to your own path. A path of peace, strength, and freedom from within.